Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, there isn't a ton of massive news out there. We do have Thursday Night Football. It is a relatively... it's extremely not interesting. Buffalo Bills are a very, very good team in the AFC. That makes it somewhat entertaining, but the AFC has little to no impact on what we got going on unless we directly face that team. Otherwise, we're just possibly number one jockeying for like that official top team in the NFL, which, let's be honest, that's kind of cool. So maybe you want the Buffalo Bills to stumble a little bit. Otherwise, you're just kind of angling for... on the off chance we see them in the Super Bowl, but even by then, they're probably going to be a different team. The other thing that makes it not super interesting is that the Miami Dolphins, for whatever reason, are kind of a dog crap football team. The Buffalo Bills are 12.5-point favorites, which is shocking. 12.5 is big. I mean, 12.5 happens when you've got like the best team in the league against the worst team in the league. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. Especially when you're talking about a Thursday night football game and a division rivalry. You would think people would be much more cautious about that kind of a game. Just to give you an idea of how bad things are in Miami. Now, personally, I'm kind of celebrating it. I've never really been a big fan of Miami. I think their head coach is a freaking weirdo. It is funny how it was adorable, right? All his weird little comments were adorable back when he was a super genius that had one of the best offenses in football. Now that they're a terrible team, people listen to his weird answers, and they're like, you know what, this guy's just kind of weird. It's like, yeah, bro, that's what I've been telling you. He's weird. Been blinded by, how just fanciful and amazing the Dolphins were. He's not funny. He's not trying to be funny. He's just a weird dude. But that did bring up a question for the Packers, since we're not really going to talk about Thursday Night Football because it doesn't matter. There is talk, there are rumblings, that perhaps if things do not go well, which the funny thing I saw was if it doesn't go well this week, which is like, of course it's not going to go well this week. I mean, you might as well just do whatever you're going to do. But let's just say in general, if things don't go well for an undetermined period of time, they're looking at a change in leadership for the Miami Dolphins. In fact, there was, this is an article from Chris Bengal over at CBSSports.com. Yes, I understand there's an ad blocker. Leave me alone. Stupid thing. Dolphins fans fly banner urging team to fire coach Mike McDaniel, GM Chris Greer. They actually got an airplane to fly one of those giant banners around. I don't know if this is over the stadium or what. Yeah, flying over Hard Rock Stadium. And they did it on Sunday, so presumably that was during the game they were doing that. That's kind of where they're at right now. Dolphins fans started a GoFundMe on Monday and raised $1,898 to help pay for the banner. My brother is expecting his firstborn son this year, and it got him thinking about generational trauma, the GoFundMe description said. As our family was gathered for the first Dolphins game of the season, he asked an important moral question. Is it fair to my son to raise him as a Dolphins fan? Shut up. They've been that was I said that, and it's stupid. Ding, 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 something's going to ruin your life. Get out of here. They've been trash for 25 years, and with this front office, they will be trash for another 25 years. It was my curse, but it doesn't have to be his cross to bear. I can break the cycle. The reason that this has been brought up as somewhat of an interesting point is, would or should the Packers look to bring in Mike McDaniel if he does end up getting fired? If, for example, he is not available as a head coach, and we can bring him in as our offensive coordinator, maybe even give him the role that Bisaccia has as assistant head coach as a sweetener or something, and Bisaccia can, I don't know, he can go do something else. But as many of us are aware, there's a lot of overlap between Matt LaFleur and Mike McDaniel in terms of where they have worked together. The first time those two crossed paths goes all the way back to 2008. We're talking almost 20 years they've worked together. Matt LaFleur had been working his way up through the Division II college ranks, got his first gig as an offensive quality control coach for Houston in 2008, That was Mike McDaniel's third year with the Houston Texans as an offensive assistant. That next year, Matt LaFleur stayed as an offensive quality control coach for Houston, and McDaniel went to Sacramento Mountain Lions, UFL team, to be their running backs coach. After that, Matt LaFleur went to Washington to be their quarterbacks coach, and in his second year doing so year 2 of him being the quarterbacks coach, which is crazy how fast he rose through the ranks. But that next year, his second year in Washington, Mike McDaniel comes in as an offensive assistant, which was his role with Houston. So it's funny that Matt LaFleur comes in and just leapfrogs him right away. He was an offensive assistant, comes back offensive assistant. Next time he sees Matt LaFleur, he went from quality control guy, new to the NFL and all that, charting some nonsense, to being the quarterbacks coach. They stayed together there for 3 years in Washington. Matt LaFleur, 4 years as the quarterbacks coach. In that final year, Mike McDaniel got his gig as a wide receivers coach, so now they're both position coaches. But that was the last year before Washington's coaching staff got blown up. Matt LaFleur went back to college as the quarterbacks coach for Notre Dame. Mike McDaniel went to be the wide receivers coach for the Cleveland Browns. 1 year later, they're back together again. Dan Quinn is the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. His offensive coordinator is Kyle Shanahan, who brought along his buddies. Mike McDaniel gets demoted back to offensive assistant. Matt LaFleur is once again the quarterback's coach. Mike LaFleur, his brother, is another offensive assistant. He also got guys like Marquand Manuel, Raheem Morris, Jeff Ulbrich, a lot of guys that went on to do some pretty cool stuff. They spent 2 years doing that. That all got blown up, and then they kind of went their separate ways. Mike McDaniel went off to the 49ers with Shanahan. Matt LaFleur went with McVay to the Rams. McDaniel spent 5 years in San Francisco before getting the head coaching gig for Miami. Obviously, we know it was 1 year with McVay, then 1 year as the OC for Tennessee before becoming the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. But this would be, they worked together over a span of 9 years, with what looks like about 3 years apart in those, so 6 of the 9 years. It's been a 9-year hiatus where they haven't worked together. I've been on record as not being obviously the biggest McDaniel fan. However, I do think he is supremely overqualified as an offensive coordinator. I don't think it's going to happen because I think the way, unless Adam Stenavich gets a job and gets hired somewhere else, which is not impossible, if Adam Stenavich is able to go get a job somewhere else and there is a vacancy, then I would say that is somewhat of a match made in heaven. I don't think they're going to fire Adam Stenavich to give Mike McDaniel that job. Whether they should or whatever else is kind of beside the point. I just don't see any scenario where they would do that. Now, it is possible that if Mike McDaniel gets fired, he does what a lot of other guys do, where they don't immediately jump back into that coordinator role. They take some kind of a, what do you call it? Can't think of the freaking word, but not assistant. That's what he was before. Kind of like special counsel kind of thing. Maybe you could bring him in that kind of a capacity. Call him your offensive specialist guru or some nonsense. It's also kind of interesting because, first of all, Mike McDaniel does come from the same tree as Matt LaFleur, so there would be a lot of things that are seamless, but also they did branch apart. And all of them kind of have their own flavor. They've all got their own kind of unique flair to this style of offense. And specifically, Mike McDaniel operated with, let's get as much speed as is humanly possible, which is the direction the Packers are going in. He's the guy that made Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, along with this elite speed rusher running back, one of the most potent offenses in football, at least for the brief period of time that he made that offense look good. It was terrifying how good that offense was. It was unstoppable. It was blowing the doors off of teams. It could be interesting to have this guy, who is seen, similar to Matt LaFleur, as somewhat of a brilliant offensive mind, to come in and have him be your to help you with that kind of stuff. I think it would be a potentially super-powered thing. And I've already spoke on that. I think Jeff Hafley's overqualified. I think Derek Ansley's overqualified for his job. I think DeMarcus Covington is overqualified for his job. There's a lot of overqualified guys that we have on staff, and Mike McDaniel would absolutely be one of them. But again, I don't see them getting rid of Stenavich. Now, I don't mean to necessarily denigrate Stenavich, but, he was a guy that was, the offensive line coach. He's extremely good at it from what we could tell. There's nothing wrong with our offense. I think it's fine since having Stenavich, but I think, first of all, it certainly hasn't been a powerhouse offense. Second of all, any and all greatness within the offense, I tend to assume is largely Matt LaFleur. I might be just massively underestimating how brilliant Adam Stenavich is. But if that's the case, that has flown under the radar for all of us. We all talk very openly about Jeff Hafley and all these guys and everything that they do. And maybe it's because Matt LaFleur is there kind of overshadowing him. But, the guys that were ahead of Adam Stenavich got hired elsewhere and were kind of seen as like complete flops. And I think the league as a whole, which is going to hurt Adam Stenavich, are looking at the Matt LaFleur tree and saying, there's no fruit on that tree. Matt LaFleur is it as far as the offense goes. You go hire some of Matt LaFleur's guys and see if they can do it out here. It has gone terribly. So, again, not trying to be negative towards Stenavich because I know nothing about his aptitude, but I would be very shocked to find out that when it comes to offense, Stenavich is the guy you want over Mike McDaniel. Knowing what we know about McDaniel and how smart he is and creative he is with offense and all that kind of stuff. And who knows, maybe it's a clash thing with LaFleur and McDaniel. Maybe they don't even freaking like each other. I don't have a clue about those dynamics. But just from a standpoint of the higher IQ, genius level, offensive mind type of person, again, it would shock me to find out that Stenavich is ahead of McDaniel on the pecking order. McDaniel had a reputation for a very, very long time. He was OC for 1 year. It went incredibly well, and he got hired away, and he went somewhere else, and he made that offense fantastic. Stenavich was elevated because some other people got hired away because of Matt LaFleur. So he got hired from within, has spent 4 years now, his fourth year right now as the OC, and I don't know what comes next here. But I do have a feeling we're getting into that phase, which always upset me with Mike McCarthy, where you don't really ever fire anybody. You try to do as good a job as possible and get your guys hired away, and then all you really do is you hire from within and bring some other guys up until they get hired away. And all that does, just logically thinking, all that's going to do is get to the point where you're going to keep playing this game until you hire somebody that is inept to be your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, whatever, and they're not good enough to get to that next point. And then you're stuck with an entire coaching staff that is not good enough to do their jobs, or at least certainly not good enough to do the next job that nobody wants. You don't want a coaching staff full of people that nobody wants. And again, this is not meant to be a shot at Adam Stenavich. It's just a thought experiment on how you should not run your team and your coaching staff. This is not a career pipeline situation where we're just trying to get people hired and promoted and gotten into. Again, you do want to do that, but only if they're worthy, not just because you put in your time. And again, the other reason I bring that up is because I think that there is some truth to that being the way that things are done in Green Bay and probably well beyond. And as a result, that would be the reason why I would say Mike McDaniel will absolutely not be a Green Bay Packer, because I don't think Stenavich gets a new job. If the Packers go on to win the Super Bowl with a powerhouse offense, maybe. And I think there's a good chance, considering McDaniel and LaFleur's relationship and everything else, that would be a perfect fit. But I don't think he gets hired away, and I don't think there's any way the Packers would ever fire him. You don't fire a guy after a good season, even though you could make the case that it's reasonable to do so. I don't know. Am I being too harsh on that? I guess I don't view the NFL the same way I view as somebody else doing their job. You know what I mean? You hire somebody, they're doing a good job, but then somebody comes along that's really, really good, and it's like, you know what? He's maybe 10% better than you, so we're going to fire you and hire this guy. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, in the NFL, I kind of do expect that to be a thing. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong because, again, it's just not going to happen. So we'll see what happens with Miami. Obviously, the first step here is for the Denver Broncos to pound the living dog crap out of them. the rumblings and rumors will start to get louder, and potentially there will be a change. From there, we'll kind of see where things stand and get a little bit more information. But I do know that those rumblings are out there. I do know that that is a discussion point on whether the Packers could hire him. So there's my thoughts on that. Why don't we take a break? We'll be right back. Something else that's in the news that's been pretty massive, and I don't fully know all the details on this, but there is a ton of talk where people are very upset that Tom Brady was sitting in the booth of the Raiders game, because he's also an announcer and gets to sit down and talk to opposing teams or whatever. And so it's unfair to kind of get this secret hidden knowledge, but also then get in the booth and use that knowledge against the team, I guess is the way that works. Just a couple minor thoughts. First of all, I don't see any reason. I thought there were going to be more guardrails on what he was allowed to do. I thought he was not allowed to go to these pre-production meetings and all that kind of stuff. There was an article that came out from Antonio Pierce, who was the former, I believe, head coach of the Raiders and was fired. He believes Tom Brady was responsible for that. He talked about a lot of different things, including that he doesn't think it's right for him. He can attend practices and see all these different things. He's not allowed to attend practice, though. So, first of all, I think even among guys like Antonio Pierce, there's maybe a little misunderstanding of what exactly is happening. As far as the production meetings, which is where these guys will get together, they'll sit at a big round table and have a discussion about, the team and some insights and all that kind of stuff, so they can be prepared as they call the game. Tom Brady is only allowed to do that virtually. He's not allowed to be there in person. And at first, I thought that was kind of silly. It doesn't make any sense. What the heck difference does it make if I get this secret knowledge through Zoom or if I'm in there in person? Let's continue and we'll circle back. Access to the team facility or hotel is not allowed. He is barred from going into the facility or hotel in person in connection with his broadcaster role. The reason I think that this is maybe blown out of proportion, and maybe not, I don't know, but those production meetings are very, very vanilla. They just are. The kind of data that they throw out, it's kind of like, oh, there's Jim Tomlinson right there. That's a guy this team is really excited about. He's been here for 2 years. Didn't really get his start because of such and such. And that's the kind of fluff stories they give you about these guys so that they can throw out these stories whenever they make a tackle. There is no deep secret knowledge that, number one, a team would voluntarily share with Tom Brady knowing that he's sitting there on the Zoom call, right? If there was some kind of massive secret knowledge, why would you tell Tom Brady he's sitting there? Just don't say it. Number two, the amount of in-depth study that teams do in preparation for their upcoming opponent should far exceed any of this information. The reason that they are providing the announcers with this information is because the announcers are not doing the amount of study that the teams coming into the games are. Any team like the Green Bay Packers going into Cleveland, they should know Cleveland significantly better and know every bit of data that Cleveland is going to be telling the announcers. There should be no surprises there, aside from some sob stories or something that they might tell them. I don't know. So it just, and again, maybe I'm missing something, but this weird idea that, first of all, he's going to practices, which he's not. He's not allowed to. He's not allowed to go to their facilities and watch them practice or do any of that kind of stuff. Number two, he can attend these virtual Zoom things to kind of get this background data. Maybe he needs it. Maybe he probably does need it, because I doubt he's in the meetings with the team enough. I know he goes to meetings and stuff, but enough to know the team inside and out. He doesn't need to do that anymore. But the idea that there is like this secret knowledge that is going to be beneficial, like they're going to come out and be like, here's our game plan. They're not doing that. And the fact that to think that the team would do that. I don't know who gets on these production, if it's the coaches or what. If you're a coach and Tom Brady is your opponent, let's say you're with the Chiefs, and even if you're not playing the Chiefs that week, but Tom Brady is sitting there, what are you going to tell him? Nothing. Nothing of relevance that he doesn't already know. Here's how you pronounce this guy's name. Here's, we run, maybe a little bit of this, that, or the. I mean, it's all stuff Tom Brady knows and the team knows, And heck, you freaking lie to him if you want to. If you think that there's something going on, then sabotage him by lying. If the Raiders are getting the majority of their inside information about teams from some 15-minute production meeting that Tom Brady had on a Zoom call, if that's what you genuinely find, then just lie to them, and then you'll just steamroll them. But that's not where they're not making game plans off of Tom Brady coming back being like, guys, guess what I just found out. It just seems weird. Why wouldn't he be in the... Of course he's going to be in the booth. He's Tom frickin' Brady, and he's a part owner. He should be on the microphone immediately. He should be interrupting the defensive coordinators and being like, bro, shut up, you're an idiot. Listen to me. This is what they're doing. You need to be doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He should be getting a direct pipeline into that quarterback's frickin' helmet. Otherwise, what are you letting him be part owner for? I want Tom Brady to help me win a championship. Where did you think he was sitting? In some soundproof booth somewhere off in a corner? So he can't, sneak information off, you know? We're going to tie a note to a pigeon, fly it down to the coaches. Here's what I heard after the meeting. And even if he wasn't some sound booth... I mean, after the meeting, what's he going to do? He could get out of the meeting, hang up, okay, thanks, guys, close the Zoom call. He could have been recording the whole thing and send it to his team anyway. So what does it matter where he sits? Some of the specific complaints are weird to me. If the idea is he's leaking the information, then it's already leaked. So why can't he sit in the booth? You know what I mean? I don't understand it. What are we talking about here? I understand that this can create some discomfort. And I understand that it would be scary to think that, he may be able to pick up some stuff. Fine, I will leave open that possibility, but nothing I've heard so far from anybody would lead me to believe that he's currently able to use his role as an announcer to benefit his team. Again, we'd have to circle back to the idea that, Tony Romo has secret hidden information that no NFL team has. And he's not sharing that with anybody, right? He's not calling up Dallas or anything like that. Why do we... I think when you start getting into specifics of what exactly is happening, unless I'm missing something here, it starts to fall apart and feel silly. I do understand, the only thing that would make me nervous is having him walking around the facility. I don't want him here. I don't want him seeing us practicing. I don't want him seeing all these different things. That's where, as a quarterback, his brain would be able to pick some stuff up. Oh, you're working on that. Oh, you're doing, okay. Yeah. But if you keep him isolated, keep him away from everything, again, those production meetings, give me a break. Where they're going to get on a call with Tom Brady and say, here's our first 15 scripted plays. You ready, Tom? You writing down our plays for when we play this week? Are you ready? I'm going to tell you all of our plays. Is that what you think is happening? What is happening? If there are other loopholes, fine, get it tidied up. I personally don't think it was a good idea to have him take on both of these roles, but here we are. And unless somebody has a legitimate complaint, which, I'm reading through this Mike Florio article, and I don't really see anything legitimate other than Antonio Pierce, who in the article admits he doesn't know what the parameters are that are set on Tom Brady, says that he thinks it's probably a big deal. And that's the core of this article. Okay. But that brings me to the last thing I wanted to discuss that was kind of also being circulated around. And that is Jordan Love and where he ranks within his draft class. Generally, these conversations, it's whatever. But I didn't love what I was hearing, so I thought I would go ahead and chime in. Why don't we take a break, though? We'll come back, and that's what we'll finish with today. All right. It's a little bit later. I actually have the game on right now. It's a little bit of a better game than I expected. It's 14-7. Still think Buffalo's going to win by a comfortable margin, but we'll see how it goes. So, when it comes to this kind of stuff, obviously I get a little psychotic about it in terms of how, I guess, rigorous I would expect someone to be. And at the very least, I just hate extremely lazy analysis. For example, if you were to say, who's the best quarterback in the NFL, and you sort it by, well, let's start by who won the most Super Bowls, and then, we got a bunch of guys that haven't won Super Bowls, so after that we'll go with MVPs, and then after that we'll go with All-Pro, and then Pro Bowls. You know what I mean? Like, this is the most shallow surface level way to do it that you possibly can. It really doesn't get more surface level than that. I mean, you could just do it in a much more incorrect way and just go by, total yards or total wins or whatever. But in terms of, like, I have a way that I think could be considered legitimate, but it's as shallow, again, as you could possibly get, that would probably be it. It's not that it's necessarily a wrong metric. It's just that there's so much noise and it's so, you know what I mean, like boxy, and it doesn't work. It's like if you had a strongman competition, not a strongman, a bodybuilding competition, where they're showing off all the muscles and all that. But everybody had to wear like a 6X t-shirt. You can still kind of see some physique, a little bit maybe, but it's not tight enough. It would be better to wear a tighter shirt so you can see the physique, and even better to take the shirt off. Doing things like, well, he won the most Super Bowls, so he wins. That's like wearing a 10X shirt. That's awful. You can't see anything. It's garbage. So I want to play this for you, and I promise, this is not me just piling on, because I know everybody's been ragging on ESPN like crazy. But I just happened to see it, and I thought it's a fun discussion, and somebody needs to do a better job than this. So I just want to play this for you so you can kind of hear. I don't know how long we'll go, but what kind of prompted this for me.
So I think right now, if I was doing it with a mix of tying it...
By the way, I've been gone for several hours. I can't remember specifically if I said what exactly we're talking about here, and in case they don't say it. The question is, who is the best quarterback from the 2020 class? That's the question we're going to try to answer. And it's really not a very easy question to answer, but they're going to try it, and then I'm going to try it, and you can make up your own mind.
I have some sort of Venn diagram or some sort of math equation that I don't know specifically, but I'm working in my head that
take that for data.
Has this balance of wins compared with like stats and all that. So I got to go Jalen Hurts number 1.
Yep, agree.
I'm going to go Joe Burrow number 2.
Agree.
I'm going to go Justin Herbert number 3, Jordan Love 4, and Tua 5. And it's a long gap between Jordan and Tua.
Yeah.
And Justin and Jordan are close, but you have to give credit to Justin for a guy that had to hit the ground running and play as a rookie, and he won Rookie of the Year and went to a bad team. His second year in the league, he threw for 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns. Since Jim Harbaugh's come in, his passing numbers have become way more efficient, but they're not as explosive. 3,870 yards passing last year, but 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions.
That is crazy. Your list is the exact same as mine. I know yesterday we kind of talked about this briefly, Love versus Herbert, and I feel like the only thing that I could say that pushes Love over Justin Herbert is just he's gotten to the playoffs more often and he's won more often. But
see what I mean? Like the really, that's the only. How many metrics have you looked at that you think are worthwhile? And you're telling me of all those, the only one has been to the playoffs more and won more. No, the fact of the matter is they're looking at the most surface level things imaginable. Wins, playoffs, playoff wins, Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl wins. I can at least appreciate that they're trying to develop this is what I've always said, develop the metric first, then apply it, because otherwise you're just going to be biased. Otherwise you pour through all the data and you sort by each list, and then when you sort by one and you find your quarterback at the top, you say look at this metric right here. This is the one I want to use. That's stupid. Develop the metric first, then apply it to the quarterbacks, and whatever comes out the other side is the answer to the question. The caveat, hey, touchdown Miami, it's tied 14-14, hey-oh. The caveat that I would throw in here is try to do a little bit of work on what metrics you choose to use. At least a little bit. Because, if you use bad ones, it's kind of the whole garbage in, garbage out thing.
I think we said what? 1 win, which I understand.
And in the regular
Not a
season, he's 20-15, and Justin Herbert's got 43 regular season wins. So, the other part.
And how many losses?
38. This is about the same winning percentage.
That's got to be dang close.
Yeah.
You said 43.
No, for crying out loud. Hold on. It was paused for a long time, so when I restarted it, it went to that point, and then it was like, oh, you want more? That's crazy. I got to think about that for a minute.
Okay, so Love is probably like 5% higher in that case.
Okay.
But just marginally.
Yeah. All right, but sorry.
Now, but what the question is...
Well, right now, I just want to say...
I totally agree with you where it's sitting.
Yeah.
But like if Justin Herbert was in Matt LaFleur's offense, are you taking Matt LaFleur, or are you taking Jordan Love, or are you taking Justin Herbert?
Justin Herbert.
But Justin Herbert has the... At this point, he's the one that truly has the best potential to be elite.
Yeah.
Because Joe Burrow with these injuries, he's not going to do it this year.
You don't think Joe Burrow is already elite?
He is, but now these injuries, like now he's going to miss 2 full seasons.
Depends how you define elite.
He's gonna get tagged as made of glass.
But also, does elite mean that you win a Super Bowl? Does it mean that you win multiple Super Bowls? Because if it counts for winning, Jalen Hurts is.
If we look at the guys who we
stuck
would
on the
say
Super
are in the
Bowl
elite
thing.
tier, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, I would say Joe Burrow is. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is. Only one of those guys won a Super Bowl.
Right, and I'm not, and I'm with you on that.
It just makes me want to throw something really hard at something really fragile. They keep talking about Super Bowls. Well, he's the only one that's won a Super Bowl. I don't care. Stop. Yay.
Just Joe Burrow, he's lost 2 full seasons basically to injury.
Yeah.
And he was hurt a lot 2 years ago as well. That's the part that it's not like a healthy Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in this class.
Yeah.
But that's getting close to like Andrew Luck status. So if I'm betting money on where it's going to end, I'm probably going to go, I might go Herbert 1, Hurts 2, and then Jordan and Joe battle it out depending on the health of Joe Burrow.
Well, I would say more on if the Bengals
call me a moron?
continue to well, the fact that you're debating
point
this,
is
the
a valid
Bengals
one,
are gonna Bengal, and
All right, so this is spiraling into just something very weird. I don't fully understand. We don't need to listen to their rapidly evolving thought processes. Again, this is. Again, I'm trying not to do the whole pile-on thing, and I get that, maybe on a radio thing you show. I don't know how they do it. I've never worked in radio. Maybe you show up and they're like, "Here's the list of things we're talking about," and you just go. I would think, I know like a lot of the AM radio guys, they show up hours before, they go through all the news items, they kind of, work through it so that they know what they're talking about by the time it comes up. It's not just like, well, this is new and here's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. And it's not like I don't sit here and try to think through things at the same time, but the point is, if we're going to do this, let me assure you, wins and Super Bowls should not in any way be a part of the equation. I know some people might want to bring up the special sauce. Like, yeah, but what about the special sauce? What about that it factor that helps you win a Super Bowl? I don't buy it. I just try to represent that in any metric anywhere. I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can do it. That's the great thing about math. Math is able to demonstrate itself. It's able to prove itself. If it can't be proven, if it's just this, well, I can't prove it anywhere, but it's just floating out there and you just got to trust me, bro. I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm not going to believe that frickin' Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Jordan Love because he's got a Super Bowl. I'm not doing that stupid game. So here's the thing. I did this once before, but me being me, I lost it. We went through a quarterback metric thing, and it was for last year, and I was actually very impressed with Jordan Love and all that kind of stuff. We talked about it. Maybe you were here, maybe you weren't. But yes, with the assistance of AI, we went through and did, it's one of the things I love about some of the newer things that they have with AI is these things called deep research. Most of them have a thing called deep research, and it will do, I know on, this is not the one that I use, but they show you how many sources. I've told you this before, but over on Claude, 372 sources to come through and kind of work through, this is what I would like to establish, whatever. Now, one of the things that I found was interesting, and maybe I'm digging too much into this, but I just want to look at this really quickly if I can find the original. Here we go. So one of the things that's tough about determining this is you got to be very specific about what question we're asking, because one of the interesting things about the data, the metrics, is that there's essentially two different things. There is predictive and descriptive. Descriptive stats would be the stats that are the best at telling you what has happened. The best at sort of summarizing a certain question. I'd like to know how accurate a person is. CPOE would be the best at, for example, quantifying how accurate you are. I'm making that up, but probably. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best at being predictive. Now, in this case, it actually is one of the best. I think it's the second best in terms of being predictive. That is to say, it can see the future. Stable metrics, as we talked about before, metrics that are not fluky, like touchdowns or interceptions. They don't typically tend to be very stable from year to year. So using it to justify how good you are would be kind of silly, because there's a good chance that you're not going to be anywhere near that next year. So what I wanted to lean into were more of the predictive ones, because I want to look at the question of not just how good are you, but how good are you from the standpoint of starting today, who is most likely to be the most successful, let's just say in 2026. I know 2025 has just started, so you could say 2025, but we're kind of using that, what little data we have on that here anyways. And so we went through, it's what we called it is a PQI. PQI stands for Predictive Quarterback Index. And so we take the best stable metrics, which are in order: EPA per dropback, CPOE, adjusted net yards per attempt, turnover-worthy play percentage, and pressure to sack rate. Pressure to sack meaning how essentially good are you at evading sacks when a pressure arrives, which we've talked about a little bit before. I might want to dig into it, because going through this, I realize I kind of made the comment that that's Jordan Love's superpower, is the ability to not be sacked. It's actually really impressive. I mean, at least compared to these guys, his numbers are shockingly low consistently, which makes sense. Stable metrics. I'll have to look at compared to some of the other guys. Maybe you got other guys like Lamar or whatever that are good at avoiding it. Sometimes the mobile guys are actually really bad at it. But I'll be interested to look at some other quarterbacks, because that does seem to be quite a superpower of Jordan Love. But what I did also is I went through 2023, 4, and 5. I didn't go all the way back to 2020 because, number one, you're introducing a little bit, I guess you could call it noise. Maybe that's not the right word, but it's getting to be so far back that it's not doing as good of a job anymore of informing what's going to happen in the future. Also, Jordan Love wasn't playing in those years. So 2023, 2024, and 2025. So each of the quarterbacks, and we're talking about Hurts, Tua, Burrow, Herbert, and Love, were given a PQI score in 2023, 2024, and 2025. And then finally, we created a final weighted PQI, which takes those but weights them so that 2025 is more valuable than 2024, is more valuable than 2023. The only other thing that I would tell you about it is when you look at EPA, CPOE, all those metrics or whatever, those are also weighted. In fact, I can tell you exactly how much they're weighted here for those that are following along at home with your notepads. 90% of you are like, just get to the frickin' point, dude. Spent a lot of time on this, all right? We're going to talk about it, and you're going to learn something. Shut up. Freaking talk to me. All right, so EPA per play represents 35% of the grade. CPOE is 25%. Adjusted net yards per attempt is 20%. And then turnover-worthy play and pressure to sack rate is 10%. Both of those are inverted because they're negative. Smaller numbers are better. So, if we look at these metrics, starting with 2023, Tua was actually the dude that year. He had and this is all normalized out of 100. He had an 84.8 PQI. After that, it was basically a tie between Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love at an 80.2 and an 80.0 for Jordan Love. And then it was not super great years for Burrow and Herbert. Herbert at a 66.2, Burrow at a 63.7. Okay, 2024, that was the year of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had the highest so far that we've talked about of an 87.4 PQI. Tua was at a 75, so still quite high, but obviously went down. Jordan, who again took a step back, theoretically, and he did according to the PQI as well, but was still the third highest graded at a 73, followed by Hurts at a 71 and Herbert at a 67.9. This is last year when Hurts won the Super Bowl, but yet he was the second lowest of the quarterbacks. As of 2025, and remember, 87.4 is the best that anybody had done in these 3 years, Joe Burrow, 2024. So far this year, Tua, who's playing right now, so we'll see how it goes, is at a 59.1. That is the lowest we've seen on this metric sheet. Joe Burrow at a 65.7, and he's not going to be able to improve that because he's hurt. Jalen Hurts is at a 78.3. Herbert is at an 83.7. That would be the third highest that we've seen. Jordan Love right now, 88.1. That is the highest of any quarterback of these 3 years. And again, it is a small sample size, but just like I said with the defense and everything else, I'm not necessarily saying that this is definitely what he's going to be by the end of the year. What I am saying, though, is that what we've seen through 2 weeks, according to my PQI metric, is that Jordan Love has been better than Herbert, Burrow, Tua, and Hurts in the last 3 years. Like, take the best year of any of those guys over the last 3 years, Jordan Love in these last 2 games has been better. 88.12. Finally, if we look at the final weighted PQI, essentially it's looking at it from the standpoint not necessarily of who's been the best over this time, kind of, but it's more of a question of if you were to pick a quarterback to run your offense today and moving forward, who would you pick? Tua is at the bottom with a 68.8. Now, they had said the same thing. Tua's at the bottom. There's a big gap. Then they would have Jordan Love. That's not who I would have. There is a bit of a gap from 68.8 up to Joe Burrow at a 72.6. From there is another semi-decent jump up to Justin Herbert at a 75.6. Closely after that is Jalen Hurts at a 76.3. And then a very sizable jump up to Jordan Love at an 81.7. So even I would say if I wanted to play with this a little bit more and maybe tweak it based on what exactly I'm asking or whatever, could certainly be refined. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the be-all, end-all, but what I am going to tell you is that there are probably dozens and dozens of hours worth of research, not specifically for me because I don't have to do all the work myself anymore, which is just wonderful. Lots and lots of hours of research. In fact, I had 4 different AIs running research on this, and then I went through those 4 to determine which of the 4 was the best, based on what it was that I was looking for, came to that final determination, and then worked through all this stuff. So again, feel free to determine your own metric if you want. Refine this one based on, whether you'd want to ask different questions or however you'd want to do it, that's fine. What I would say, though, is that I am relatively confident that what I have done here, first of all, like I said, build the metric first and then see what happens. I'm not doing this to say, how can I make Jordan Love on top? In fact, I would be... If you were to just ask me what I think would happen, I would not expect Jordan Love to be at the top. But he is. But what I would say is, if you had to choose between listening to me and what I'm saying and what I've done here as being somewhat authoritative, or choosing ESPN, whose metric was essentially, I'm working on some mathematical model in my head that has to do with wins and how many Super Bowls you have, I would just implore you to please choose this podcast. Please. All right? They seem like great people. They seem like entertaining personalities. I have no issue if you want to listen to them, but good Lord. That's not how you do it. It's just not. Again, if you wanted to just pick a metric, if you wanted to use PFF and just say, based on the PFF grades, I'd go with this guy, that's fine. Fine. That's fine. If you don't want to use PFF, you could use, I don't know. I mean, at some point you draw a line and go, that's pretty shaky, but, passer rating and if you want to throw a little seasoning on top of it with, I think he's got that special sauce for Super Bowls or whatever as maybe sort of a tiebreaker. Fine. Go ahead and jazz it up. That being said, you should feel good about the quarterback you have. Not just because he's the best, potentially, of the 2020 class, but also take into account, this is a very good class. Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and maybe even Tua. I mean, the fact that Tua is the worst of the five in one draft class, and he's still absolutely a starting caliber quarterback is wild. And I think Herbert, Love, Burrow, and Hurts are it could potentially be 4 top 10 quarterbacks right there. It's just insane how good that group is. So, feel good, man. I mean, everything is falling incredibly into place. And like I said, enjoy it because I don't know what's going to happen next week or the week after that or the week after that. But right now, you have got one of the best quarterbacks in football, one of, if not the best defenses in football, one of the best Packers teams we've rooted for in ever, like a long, long time. Like I said, 2011 is the last time you should have felt this good. 96 might be the last time there was a team this dominant. Through 2 weeks, I get it. I know, I put the caveat on there 10 billion times. I'm just saying, specifically about that, enjoy it now while it lasts, because it might not last forever. But even if it does last the entire season, enjoy it as much as is humanly possible. Don't spend 1 second sitting here grumbling about crap. This might be, if this is the greatest season you've ever had as a Packer fan, that means it'll never happen again. So enjoy every millisecond of it with as much intensity as is humanly possible. All right? All right. You all have a good rest of your day. I'm going to get back to the old Thursday night footballs. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Numbers up, I'm the cheesehead stat smith, graphs on the wall. PQI cooking like ribs on the stall. EPA per drop back, smoke in the air. CPL way hitting like love to the flat, oh yeah. Sex, I mitigate, pocket P2S. Turnover worthy, nah, I'm TWP less. Spreadsheet samurai, keys go clack. I talk ball nightly, kids yell, dad's back. I'm a nerd, and I like it. Pack stats hitting, can't fight it. From Lambo lights to my basement mic. If it's data, I'll slice it and spice it. Jasmine rice flow. I season my takes like a Sunday show. Third down wins with success rate steady. If the model says go, then the pack stays ready. I'm not guessing, I'm regressing. That variance tight. Green and gold bars tuck you in goodnight. I'm a nerd, and I like it. Pack stats hitting, can't fight it. From Lambo lights to my basement mic. If it's data, I'll slice it and spice it. Anyway, Packernet out. See you tomorrow.